Don't worry, Claire. If the dentist does hurt a wee bit, you just tell him I'll be round to sort him out, OK?
So, where will you be? It won't take longer than 10 minutes, I don't think.
I'll just sit here.
Coming in that a Royal Navy frigate, HMS Broadsword, has been hijacked in the Gulf of Sirte near Tunis by a group of mercenaries who are posing as Coast Guard officials. We hope to have a more detailed report on our 10 o'clock bulletin. That is the end of this news flash.
I'll have to go. Can you get a cab home?
Yes, of course.
Bye-bye, darling.
Bye-bye.
I'll ring you.
Secretary of State for Defense, Mr. Simon Kerslake.
Mr. Speaker, with your permission and that of the House, I should like to make a statement concerning Her Majesty's frigate Broadsword. At 7:40 GMT this morning, HMS Broadsword was passing through the Gulf of Sirte between Tunis and Benghazi when a group of guerrillas posing as Coast Guards boarded the ship and seized the officer in command, Captain Lawrence Packard, and placed the crew under arrest. The guerrillas, claiming to represent the People's Liberation Army, have since placed Captain Packard and the crew in the engine room of the ship. We cannot be certain of their fate. There is no suggestion that Broadsword was doing anything other than going about her lawful business. This barbaric act must be looked upon as piracy under the 1958 Geneva Convention on the High Seas. The guerrillas are demanding the release of all Libyan prisoners in British prisons in exchange for the return of HMS Broadsword and her crew. My right honourable friend, the Home Secretary, informs me that there are only 9 known Libyans in British jails at the present time. But no matter what the number, Her Majesty's government cannot and will not interfere with due process of law and has no intention of releasing any of these men. We have demanded and expect immediate action from the Libyan government.
Mr. Owen Hughes.
Mr. Speaker, I would like it to be known that the opposition fully supports the government in not giving in to these terrorist demands. But I'm entitled, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, the whole House is entitled to ask, what plans have been formulated at this early stage for the recovery of HMS Broadsword?
Mr. Simon Kerslake.
We are, Mr. Speaker, at present seeking a diplomatic solution. But I have already chaired a meeting of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Nevertheless, certain basic questions cry out to be asked. Firstly, how is it possible that a Royal Navy frigate, a modern and highly armed warship, can be hijacked as easily as a cross-channel ferry?
International incident. A strongly worded statement of protest has been sent to the Libyan government. The Libyan ambassador has been called to the Foreign Office, and our ambassador to the United Nations...
that we in the Social Democratic Party concur with his view that this is indeed an act of piracy. But can he tell the House how long he will allow negotiations to continue when it is well known throughout the diplomatic world that Gaddafi is a master of procrastination?
Come on.
His Excellency, the Libyan ambassador, sir.
Foreign Secretary.
Ambassador, please sit down. Her Majesty's government wishes to make it abundantly clear to the government of Libya that we consider the act of boarding and holding Her Majesty's ship broadsword against her will to be an act of piracy on the high seas.
May I just say?
No, you may not, Ambassador. And until our ship is released, we shall do everything in our power to bring both diplomatic and economic pressures to bear on your government.
May I just ask?
My Prime Minister wants you to know that she wishes to speak to your head of state immediately, and I shall expect to hear back from you within the hour.
Yes, Foreign Secretary, but...
You may also report that we reserve the right to take any action that we deem appropriate if you fail to secure the release into safe custody of Broadsword and her crew by 12 noon tomorrow GMT. Do I make myself plain?
Yes, Foreign Secretary. But I would like to ask...
That will be all, Ambassador. Good night. So, now what do we do?
We act out the oldest diplomatic game in the world.
What do you mean?
Our sit-and-wait policy. Well, we're awfully good at it. After all, we have been at it for nearly 1,000 years.
Well, while we're sitting, let's at least start with a few telephone calls. I'll start with Schultz in Washington and then get me Shevardnadze in Moscow. Thank you, James.
Very little has changed in the last hour. The Foreign Office has still had no success in contacting Colonel Gaddafi. Now, I fear we must now treat the capture of Broadsword as rather similar to the occupation of the American embassy in Iran 7 years ago. Now, in such circumstances, we can either jaw or war, to quote Churchill. Now, we are forming a plan for the physical recapture of Broadsword, because we assume the Foreign Office are better qualified for jaw.
Could I place details of this provisional plan in front of the Cabinet tonight?
So what exactly are you accusing the government of doing?
I'm not accusing the government of doing anything, but there are some striking anomalies in this situation which need to be cleared up. Namely, what was the Broadsword doing in Libyan territorial waters in the first place, and how is it that a Royal Navy vessel can be overwhelmed so easily?
Nonetheless, you're taking risks, aren't you? You've gone out on a limb politically.
No, I don't think so. Certainly I've asked some uncomfortable questions, but the House of Commons exists so that such questions can be asked.
So you're not making a heavily disguised bid for the leadership?
Owen Hughes is the leader of the Labour Party. As such, he has my complete loyalty, and he knows it.
I therefore suggest that we have no choice but to mount a rescue operation. The longer we put off such a decision, the harder our task will become. The Joint Chiefs are putting the final touches to a plan, codenamed Shoplifter, which they feel must be carried out within the next 24 hours if the men and the ship are to be saved.
What happens if your plan fails? We risk losing not only Broadsword and her crew, but the respect and goodwill of the entire free world.
There is no serving officer in the British Navy who will thank us for leaving Broadsword in Libyan waters while we try and negotiate a settlement. At best, our ship will be returned to us when it suits the terrorists, and Gaddafi can laugh at the United Nations while he's captured not only one of our most modern frigates, but also the headlines of the world's press in the same way that Ayatollah Khomeini did. Now, those headlines not only serve to humiliate our people, but they also invite the sort of election defeat that Carter suffered at the hands of the American people after the Iranian embassy debacle.
Prime Minister, with respect, it would be extremely foolish to take such an unnecessary risk, while world opinion is on our side.
If we wait...
Let us at least wait for a few more days.
If we wait, the crew will be transferred from the ship to a military prison, and then we'd have two targets to concentrate on.
What, in brief, what plans have the Joint Chiefs of Staff devised?
Very daring. Very simply. A submarine at ocean floor level will take men from the Special Boat Service to within a mile of the ship. From there, they will swim underwater to HMS Broadsword, board her, and recapture her. I have a team already rehearsing this off the coast of Scotland using an identical sister ship. And they estimate that the whole operation could be completed in 65 minutes, by which time the frigate will be back in international waters.
Simon, no one respects the SBS or indeed the SES more than myself. But if this plan fails, then President Carter's debacle, as you call it, will seem a mere peccadillo compared to the disgrace and disaster that will be blamed on us.
Prime Minister.
And we will have a Labour government within days.
Prime Minister, I admit the operation has risks.
I need more time to consider...
We don't have that much time, Prime Minister.
I am aware of that. I must also take into account what the Foreign Secretary has said. We will wait. I must examine this more thoroughly. Now, we all have our duties. I suggest we attend to them. Let us not forget the country still has to be governed. Bill.
Come in.
His Excellency, the Libyan ambassador, sir.
Foreign Secretary?
Ambassador. Doubtless you're aware of the vote taken an hour ago at the United Nations supporting the United Kingdom's resolutions 12 to 40.
Yes, Foreign Secretary.
In which your government was condemned by 90% of the leaders of the world's population.
Yes, Foreign Secretary.
Please sit down, Ambassador. My Prime Minister is still waiting to hear from your head of state.
I am aware of that, Foreign Secretary.
Have you had any contact with Colonel Gaddafi?
No, Foreign Secretary.
But you have a direct telephone link to his headquarters.
Then you are only too aware, Foreign Secretary, that I have been unable to speak to him.
Well, then I shall speak to you on the hour, every hour, Mr. Courier. Don't press my country's hospitality too far.
Foreign Secretary.
Ambassador.
The SBS will be ready to move at midnight tomorrow. If we don't move then, we'll have to wait another month.
Why?
Because Ramadan, when Muslims fast, comes to an end. And tomorrow night will be our best chance to catch the guerrillas off their guard. It's also finely tuned, Prime Minister. We can't afford to throw away such a strategic advantage.
Mr. Gould.
Hello, Jack. You're here late.
I wanted to catch you. I thought you might like to know what Her Majesty's ship Broadsword was really up to in the Gulf of Sirte.
If your sources are reliable.
I have some documents. Photocopies.
Let's go and have a drink.
What do you think the outtake of this speech? What are you going to do about it? Do you think we should use force at the end? Can we have just a few words? Any other comments to make?
The submarines will be in position here and here in 2 hours' time. And we'll maintain radio silence until mission completed.
Surely they can still be detected.
They're on the seabed, and I am assured that no one will know they're there.
Prime Minister Colonel Gaddafi is no fool. I'm sure he remembers the London embassy siege. He must suspect that we are not prepared to be passive about his act of piracy.
If the man is not prepared to
There is
negotiate...
still time.
Foreign Secretary, if the man is not prepared to negotiate, do you expect me to give in to blackmail? There are 217 hostages on that ship who may be killed at any moment. Some of them may already be dead. It's going to be a long and traumatic night ahead of us. Let me know if anything comes through, though, however trivial.
As you wish, Prime Minister.
That's it. They're on their way.
It's for you, sir.
Kerslake. Simon, it's Charles Seymour. I finally got through to Gaddafi. He wants to negotiate.
It's too late. I can't stop them now.
Don't be such a bloody fool. Order them to turn back. Don't you understand? We've won a diplomatic coup.
Gaddafi could negotiate for months and still end up humiliating us. No, I won't turn back.
We shall see how the Prime Minister reacts to your arrogance.
Yes, Prime Minister.
Can you stop them if I order you to?
Yes, Prime Minister.
But you would like to go through with it, wouldn't you?
I only need a few more minutes, Prime Minister.
Do you understand fully the consequences if you fail, with Charles already claiming a diplomatic victory?
You would have my resignation within the hour.
I suspect mine would have to go with it, in which case Charles would be Prime Minister by this time tomorrow. Gaddafi's on the other line, and I'm going to tell him that I am prepared to negotiate. Perhaps that will give you enough time, and let's hope it's Gaddafi who has to worry about resignations over breakfast. Do you know the hardest thing I've had to do in this enterprise?
No, Prime Minister.
When Gaddafi rang earlier, I had to pretend to be asleep so that he wouldn't know I was sitting waiting by the phone. Good luck, Simon. I'll ring and explain to Charles my decision.
Thank you.
Simon, I want it clearly understood that I gave you the news concerning Gaddafi's desire to negotiate at 1 minute past midnight, and that's on the record. So there'll only be one minister handing in his resignation later this morning.
I know exactly where you stand, Charles, and I feel confident that whatever happens, you'll come through your own mound of manure smelling of roses. Shoplifter apprehended.
Congratulations, Simon. Continue as agreed.
Mr. Raymond Gould. Mr. Speaker, it would be churlish not to congratulate the Secretary of State for Defense for the swift and effective application of military force to bring Broadsword and her crew safely home. Provided one agrees that the operation was necessary in the first place. In hindsight, certain important questions still remain unanswered. Can the Prime Minister confirm or deny the following information which has recently come into my hands? 1. Captain Packard was involved in a secret rescue mission before Broadsword was hijacked. 2. The secret services and heads of state of both Libya and this country were fully aware of this highly sensitive operation. 3. The objects of the rescue were members of a recently deposed and much condemned ex-government of a certain country bordering Libya. 4.
The honourable and learned member must be allowed to be heard. Order!
4. The mercenaries, or terrorists, were in fact political opponents of Gaddafi who strongly objected to this disgraceful connivance between our two countries. Even ministers of this government's own cabinet were not informed of the existence or the nature of this operation.
Prime Minister!
Mr. Speaker, with respect, the honourable and learned member for Leeds North would appear to have taken leave of his senses. And it is shameful that such unsubstantiated and hysterical allegations could be made at the very moment when this nation is expressing gratitude and joy at the return of her citizens. Precisely what documents Raymond Gould has in his possession and how he got hold of them.
Ladies and gentlemen, order, please.
The motion is that this national executive deplores the politically dangerous use of the military option in the recent broadsword incident. Furthermore, it demands the initiation of a full public inquiry into the circumstances preceding the hijacking.
If you don't drop this now, Ray, you cause great damage to the party.
I do have a seconder.
People will assume that we're against the use of military force under any circumstances.
The whole operation was a cover-up on a grand scale, and they got away with it.
You must withdraw that motion.
Must withdraw it.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, order, please. What the hell are you playing at? You failed to get your way with the executive, so now you leak it to the papers.
Wasn't me, Owen. I don't play those games, and you know that.
I've got to hand it to you, Ray. You've caught the public eye and made yourself a martyr to the party.
Only because I was doing what you should have been doing in the first place.
That's not the point.
You should have asked those questions instead of toadying to the Tories, and you should have demanded a public inquiry. If there is support for my stand in the country and the party, it was yours for the taking.
Is that why you're now thinking of a June election?
It's true. I am thinking of a June election, but which June I am thinking of is not so clear.
God, how many more?
You've had nearly 8 years.
Well, I think this is about half. How's the split?
54 against and 456 for.
Succession, let alone 3 since Lord Liverpool in 1812.
I care little for Lord Liverpool or historical precedent, except perhaps the precedent that June has always proved a winner for myself and the party.
Let me return to the broadsword issue for a moment, if I may, which continues to rumble around the corridors of Westminster.
Well, let's hope it continues rumbling till the party conference in October.
Why till then?
Well, I intend to stand for the deputy leadership.
At last. But with all this hanging over you, Hughes is bound to be against you.
Yes, well, Owen Hughes is not the party.
Ladies and gentlemen, the result of the ballot for the deputy leadership. Adrian Woodford Brett, 5,462,842. Raymond Gould, 5,626,727. I duly declare Raymond Gould elected to the post of deputy leader of the Labour Party.
3% in it. You see Owen's face?
He wasn't very pleased, was he?
Well, he must have got used to the idea pretty quickly. He just offered me the Shadow Chancellorship. He's being very shrewd.
Your supporters become his supporters.
Yes, unite and rule.
Congratulations, Ray. We're all delighted.
Thank you, Norman. I know your people.
Debt's repaid, Ray. Now get out there and get Labour back into power.
Congratulations, my dear Raymond. But have you read Standing Order 5-4 of the party constitution? Much love, Kate.
When the party leader, for whatever reason, becomes permanently unavailable, the deputy party leader shall automatically become party leader until a new leader is elected at the party conference.
Stepford, June the 12th.
How come you're always the first to know, Alec?
Finger still on the pulse, old chum.
Freedom from war, freedom from poverty. Now, it suits the Tories to bribe you to vote Conservative and leave it all to them. That's not democracy. That's paternalism. It's based on the belief that people aren't able to run their own lives. It rejects all...
Gould makes Atkinson look like a pompous fool.
He is very impressive.
Passionate is a better word.
A performance like that on television will win them a lot of votes, mark my words.
I know. Raymond Gould is probably the only politician I know who believes every word he says.
Do you think we're going to lose?
Oh, I wish I could say no. If Hillary hadn't insisted on standing for the third time against all the odds, I'd be a bit more confident. The voters booted Churchill out in '45, and that was after winning a world war.
What you really mean is you think she should have resigned in favour of you.
To ask my wife a very personal question, if you like. How would you like to live in a small, cramped Georgian house in a dreary cul-de-sac?
Sounds dreadful.
Yes, it is dreadful. And there's no front garden, and we probably won't get much sleep because the next-door neighbour's always entertaining foreigners.
Where is it?
It's number 11 Downing Street. And if you can stand all that, you're now looking at the next Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Morning, Headmaster.
Morning, Mr. Seymour.
This is Harry.
How do you do, Harry? How are you?
Okay, thank you.
Welcome to Hill House. I'm sure you'll be happy here.
I've got to go to work now, darling. I'll see you this evening. Be a good boy. Miss Nanny will collect him this afternoon.
Yes, of course.
Goodbye, Headmaster.
Goodbye now.
Thank you.
Well, now, Harry. Right. I'm sure you'd like to meet some of the others.
Lots of old faces are leaving the arena, and I believe it's high time that this one went as well.
Leslie, the SDP wouldn't have existed without you.
No. Do you know, that's history. It's also sentiment. No, I think we should start afresh. Capitalize on the new faces and the new energy. No, 6 years is quite long enough. I want you to succeed me. Oh, say something. Oh, I'm not dying. Andrew, this has not been a hasty decision. See, I've had my share of the limelight, and now it's your turn. I want you to take over. But would you accept if it was
Of course I would.
Good. Well, I will announce my resignation at the end of this session. And don't worry, you'll have no competition.
You do realize that if the balance of power does ever rest in my hands, I might not know which way to jump.
Morning, Howard. Morning, sir.
Mr. Seymour.
Charles, good morning.
Hello, Clive.
Hello. Good to see you again after such a long time.
It's nice to be back. Thank you, Juliet.
Juliet, could you rustle up a couple of coffees?
Certainly.
Well, I must congratulate you on the way you've handled the bank's affairs during my absence.
Well, thank you, Charles. It's very nice of you to say so.
I was particularly impressed with the distillers' takeover. That certainly took the city by surprise.
Yes, it was quite a coup, wasn't it? And there's another in the pipeline.
Well, I shall look forward to hearing all the details.
Well, I'm afraid it remains confidential at the moment.
Well, of course, but now I'm back, I'll have to be briefed as soon as possible.
I'm afraid that shareholders can't be briefed until we're certain that the deal's been concluded. We can't afford rumors damaging our credibility, can we?
No, certainly not. But you must realize that I'm not an ordinary shareholder. I am returning as chairman of the bank.
No, Charles. I am the chairman of the bank.
Do you realize whom you're addressing?
Yes, I think so. A former foreign secretary, a former chairman of the bank, and a 2% shareholder.
Well, I'm sure you're aware that the board agreed to have me back as chairman as and when the Conservative Party returned to opposition.
The composition of the board has changed considerably since those days. Perhaps you were too busy running the rest of the world to notice these minor comings and goings in Cheapside.
I shall call a board meeting.
You haven't the authority.
Very well, then. I shall demand an extraordinary general meeting.
And tell the shareholders what? That you had a standing order to return as chairman any time you felt like it? Doesn't sound like a former foreign secretary, does it?
I'll have you out of this office within 24 hours.
I don't think so, Charles. Mrs. Trubshaw has completed her 5 years with us and left on a full pension. It won't take you long to find out that I don't have a Swiss bank account or a well-compensated mistress.
Perhaps you're not fully aware quite how far my influence stretches. I can and will get you removed.
I hope not, Charles. For your sake.
Are you threatening me?
Certainly not, Charles. But I would hate to have to explain to the shareholders how this bank lost over £500,000 on the Nethercott account because of your personal wish to ruin Simon Kerslake's career. The only thing the bank managed to salvage from that fiasco was goodwill. And we only managed that because I recommended that Morgan Grenfell picked up the pieces.
When I make that public, it'll finish you.
Perhaps. But it will stop you becoming Prime Minister. Thank you. I'll only need one, Juliet.
Do you know any other restaurant?
Yes, but they don't know me. How you doing, Georgia? So, what are you up to nowadays? Can't believe opposition keeps you fully occupied.
Not really. Could be
described as one of the foremen unemployed again.
Well, that's what we're here to talk about. But first, I recommend the country vegetable soup, followed by the beef
off the trolley.
You remember?
The one thing you've always been right about.
Thanks, William. Thank you. So now you no longer have the entire armed forces at your disposal, or ambassadors to call you your eminence, or whatever they call you now. Why don't you join the board of my new company?
Well, it's kind of you to ask, Ronnie, but I'm afraid the answer has to be no.
There's a salary of $20,000 a year to go with it.
I could do with the money, but I'm a committed politician, and I no longer want to involve myself in any commercial activities.
That might stop you becoming Prime Minister.
Frankly, yes.
Thank you.
I've got a better than outside chance, and I don't want to lengthen the odds by becoming involved in anything else right now.
Yeah, but everybody knows as soon as Hillary announces she's going to pack it in, you'll be the next leader. It's as simple as that.
No, Ronnie. It's never as simple as that.
Who's going to beat you?
Charles Seymour, for one.
Seymour, that toffee-nosed git.
Well, he has a lot of friends in the party, and his patrician background still counts for something with the Tories. Lord Mackinnon and Sir George are still the best loved of our recent prime ministers.
Yeah, but they were given the leadership by the magic circle. I mean, you killed Seymour with every elected member of the party having a vote.
Time will tell. So, what do you want to know?
Well, I've been working my backside off in preparation for going public, which is why I want you on my board.
You never give up.
No, I don't. And I hope you haven't given up your 1% interest in the company.
Elizabeth has it locked away somewhere?
You better find the key.
Why?
Because when I put our 10 million shares on the market at £3 a time, your one original share will be exchanged for 100,000 shares of common stock. Yeah, I know you never were Chancellor, but that's £300,000 of anyone's money. Oh, it's lovely. Well, say something.
I'd forgotten the share existed.
Not a bad investment for £1, eh? Remember what I said when we first met? You won't regret it.
For single-parent families and disablement. No woman whose husband has sacrificed his life for his country shall be allowed to suffer because of an ungrateful nation. War widows' pensions will therefore be honored at their face value. The tax on beer, cigarettes, petrol, and perfume will go up by 8%, in line with inflation, and capital gains tax will be raised to 50%. Mr. Speaker, my purpose as the first Labour Chancellor for 10 years is not to rob the rich and give to the poor, rather to make those...
Norman, Charles Seymour. Sorry to trouble you again, but it's important party business. Oh, yes, strictly confidential. I need some more information on Simon Kerslake.
Dear Sir Adrian, I would like to confirm that I will not be putting my name forward for re-election as leader of the Conservative and Unionist Party of Great Britain.
I will be over 65 at the time of the next election and have already led the party for 14 years, the longest period for any Conservative since Churchill. I feel that the time has come to pass the leadership on to new blood. Yours sincerely, Hilary Ann Turner.
Editor predicts Kerslake 116, Seymour 110.
I've just divided the Financial Times don't knows down the middle. Ladbrokes is giving me 2-1 on, with Seymour 11-8 against.
That's a good sign.
I just know from bitter experience it pays never to underestimate the Right Honourable Member for Sussex Downs. Good God. What's there? Right. There we are.
Robert, have you seen Alec?
No idea where he is. Sorry, Charles.
Thank you.
Well, that's put the cat amongst the proverbials. If Alec does scrape some votes together, they'll all come from Charles's not quite sure's. The real question is, why is Alec bothering?
I just want to enjoy a brief moment of glory before this corpulent body of mine sinks into the grave.
I think you just enjoy making trouble, Alec. Charles would probably like to strangle you.
Oh, I know he would. He's already begged me to withdraw. And Simon, I'm sure, isn't too happy either. They both thought they had the leadership in the bag, and then out of the woodwork comes little Pipkin.
How many votes can you hope to pick up?
More than these drunken scribblers realise. I already have 9 pledged, not including my own, and I may well end up with 17.
Why so many?
Dear simple creature, there are members of the Tory party who do not wish to be led either by an upwardly mobile minor public schoolboy or an arrogant aristocratic snob. By voting for me, they lodge their protest very clearly.
Isn't that rather irresponsible of you, Alec?
Perhaps, but you can't imagine the number of dinner invitations I've received this week. I'm hoping they'll continue for at least a year after the election is over.
Dennis, can I have a word?
Something like
Dennis Carson, 13, sir. Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Yes, sir, I am satisfied that the increase in capital gains tax will be highly productive.
Dennis Carson. Mr. Speaker, what would my right honourable learned friend's attitude be to a man who invests £1 in a company and 5 years later receives a cheque for £300,000 despite not being on the board or seeming to be involved in any way with that company? Chancellor of the Exchequer.
I would remind my honourable friend that capital gains tax now stands at 50%, which might dampen his ardour somewhat.
Yeah, but is such a man fit to be Prime Minister? Order! Or even Leader of the Opposition? Order! Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Mr. Speaker, that remark is not worthy of an answer.
Mr. Charles Seymour.
Mr. Speaker, is the Chancellor aware that this personal attack is being aimed at my right honourable friend, the member for Pucklebridge, and is a disgraceful slur on his reputation and character? The honourable member for Liverpool Dockside should withdraw his allegation immediately.
Dennis Carson. Speaker, the allegation is withdrawn.
Ooh, thank you, darling.
Why aren't you answering the phone?
Listen.
Robin Oakley of the Daily Mail. We'd be grateful if you could ring us with a statement regarding Dennis Carson's allegation that you own £300,000 in shares.
They're all like this.
Simon, this is Raymond Gould. I just want to assure you that I had no knowledge of Carson's supplementary question and apologize for any embarrassment it might have caused.
Gould didn't need to say that. I knew he was being used.
What grudge has Carson got against
It was
you?
set up.
By whom?
Well, who do you think has got most to gain by crippling my chances of the leadership? Unfortunately, I could never prove it. God knows what tomorrow's papers are going to say.
I would not suggest for one moment that Simon Kerslake has done anything that might be construed as dishonest. But with the spotlight turned so fiercely on him, there may be some members of Parliament who feel they cannot risk going into a general election with an accident-prone leader. Sounds bad for Simon.
Well, it's the where there's smoke, there's fire syndrome. Character assassination is a growth occupation these days.
He didn't do anything illegal, did he?
No. But it makes a certain Charles Seymour look whiter than white, doesn't it?
Certainly does. Listen to this. Mr. Seymour, on the other hand, has made his position abundantly clear. He did not seek to return to his family bank in opposition while he was still hoping to hold public office.
Juliet, would you come in for a moment, please? I want you to take a letter and have it sent immediately by courier. It's to Simon Kerslake. You'll find his home address on the file. Dear Mr. Kerslake, I write to correct a fact to which the press have continually referred. Mr. Charles Seymour, the former chairman of this bank, did seek to return to Seymour's when the Conservatives went into opposition.
He hoped to resume as chairman at a salary of £40,000 a year. The board of Seymour's did not fall in with his wishes. Yours, etc., Clive Reynolds. Are you going to use it?
No. It will only draw attention to the issue.
But this is proof that Charles Seymour lied.
I'm not going to use his tactics to get votes. I want to win the leadership on merit.
I'm sure there are a lot of honest men on the back benches. Are you going to join them?
I'm still not going to use it.
The result of the ballot carried out to select the leader of the Parliamentary Party is as follows. Charles Seymour, 138. Simon Kerslake, 135. Alec Pimkin, 15. There being no outright winner, a further ballot will take place next Tuesday without Mr. Pimkin.
Charles Seymour.
It's Elizabeth Kerslake. And don't ring off, Mr. Seymour, because I feel confident that what I have to say will interest you. Having watched you from a distance over the years, I'm sure that your reaction to Carson's question in the Commons last week was not spontaneous. And if anything happens this week that could cause my husband to lose the election, you can be assured I shall not sit by and watch. I have in front of me a file marked Miss Amanda Wallace. And if you wish the contents to remain confidential, then I would advise you against any repetition of your previous behavior. It's packed with names Private Eye would wallow in for months. And you needn't bother to inform me that such an action would get me struck off the medical register. It would be a small penalty for watching you suffer the way my husband has this week.
Mr. Pimkin, now that you're no longer seeking office personally, you've acquired, in a sense, the role of kingmaker.
Well, that's rather a grand phrase, but, yes, I suppose I have. However, you must realize it was never my intention to be placed in this position of such, historic responsibility.
Well, nevertheless, Mr. Pimkin, can you tell us which candidate you'll advise your supporters to vote for in the second ballot?
I cannot possibly answer that question now. It will demand a great deal of thought and of soul-searching on my part.
Well, on what will you base this soul-searching?
It's my intention to interview both candidates in the near future and to ask them one or two pertinent questions. I shall then be in a position to inform my supporters which man I recommend to be the next leader of the Conservative Party.